Beneath the ocean's shimmering blue, quiet predators glide through shark-infested waters, ruling their territories. Human awe mingles with fear at this delicate balance of nature, where majestic and menacing creatures coexist. Sharks, the untamed spirits of the sea, command respect in their watery realm, embodying the raw, untamed power and beauty of the ocean's depths. This summer, 2013, the azure waters of the Bahamas beckon travelers from across the globe. Situated in the very center of the Caribbean, this archipelago is most famous for its gorgeous beaches, vibrant sea life, and luxurious resorts. While there were so many islands with a cosmopolitan aura, Nassau stood distinct with its lively mixture of colonial and modern architecture. It is where Jessica Miller and her boyfriend, Mark Thompson, started their romantic getaway. Jessica, a marketing executive, was 28, and her boyfriend, Mark, a software developer, was 30. They had been dating for 2 years. Their relationship was passionate but frequently turbulent. They decided to charter a private yacht for a day to explore the Exumas, a chain of islands famous for their crystal-clear waters and diverse marine ecosystem. This sleek yacht, Sea Breeze, cut out of Nassau's busy marina early in the morning. The weather was great, with the sun well up and shining down on them, blowing a gentle breeze. This couple was looking forward to their day of snorkeling, swimming, and being amazed by the beauty of the Bahamas. But beneath the surface, there simmered some underlying tensions. The couple had started in high spirits, but as the Sea Breeze cruised along the cerulean waters, it slowly became a shouting match. It began with petty misunderstandings about their plans, and rapidly became a verbal brawl. Jessica pressed further, accusing Mark of being too controlling, while Mark heaped counter-allegations on Jessica, saying she was too independent. There the argument went, strictly one-up. Unbeknownst to them, the yacht had just entered an area known for shark activity. The captain, an experienced sailor named Captain Harris, had told them earlier about the possibility of encountering reef sharks. But the couple listened less to his words in the heat of their argument. In that blind, raging moment, Mark did the unthinkable. He pushed Jessica into the crystal-clear waters below. For a split second, everything seemed to come to a standstill. Jessica's scream pierced the air as she hit the water with a loud splash. This sudden commotion promptly alerted several reef sharks lurking nearby. Jessica's first reaction was shock, but it quickly turned into outright terror at the sight of the dark silhouettes of the sharks circling below her. She struggled to stay afloat, her heart pounding in her chest. The realization of her danger came over her like a tidal wave. The instant Jessica hit the water, Mark realized the grave situation. His anger, now vaporizing, gave way to overwhelming regret and fear. He rushed toward the edge of the yacht, his eyes wide in horror at what met him, the sharks closing in on Jessica. Mark knew he had to move quickly. He grabbed a life preserver and plunged into the water. His mind raced as he thought of how he could save Jessica and then himself, and take them safely back aboard the yacht. The water was surprisingly warm, but the presence of the sharks sent a chill down Mark's spine. He swam with all his might toward Jessica, the life preserver in tow. Jessica was terrified, but somehow had the sense to tread water and keep an eye on the approaching sharks. Mark grabbed her just in time and thrust the preserver into her hands. The sharks circled closer, looking for an angle, sensing something was wrong. Mark and Jessica clung to the life preserver, their eyes locked in a silent agreement to survive this ordeal together. The commotion alerted Captain Harris, who quickly sprang into action. He turned the yacht toward the struggling couple, shouting instructions and tossing them additional flotation devices. In this precarious situation, having a seasoned captain made all the difference. They seemed to stretch out to an eternity for the next couple of minutes. Mark and Jessica kicked and splashed to fend off the sharks while fighting towards the yacht. Sharks circled them, curious but not otherwise belligerent, their sleek bodies cutting through the water without apparent effort. Jessica expressed much fear, and Mark could see the determination in her eyes. They had fought moments before, driven by a force and their intent, survival. Mark's actions earlier had gotten them into this dangerous situation, but he proved to be resolved to make things right, which gave Jessica some hope. Nearing the yacht, Captain Harris over-shouldered a long pole with a hook at the end, an apparent precaution against such emergencies. Mark grasped it and pulled himself and Jessica closer to the boat. Finally, they made it to the side of the yacht with one final puff of energy. Captain Harris and his crew swiftly hauled Mark and Jessica aboard. Once on deck, the crew rushed to check their injuries and administer first aid. Jessica's legs were scratched and bruised from frantic kicking, but sharks had bitten neither her nor Mark. As they lay gasping for breath and shivering from adrenaline, the weight of their narrow escape hit them squarely. The experience shook both Mark and Jessica, altering their relationship forever. Back at their resort in Nassau, they were filled with shock and reflection. The near-death encounter underscored how fragile life can be and how impulsive actions can have serious consequences. Mark felt deeply guilty for his actions and apologized profusely to Jessica, vowing never to let his anger overtake control. Though traumatized by the ordeal, Jessica recognized the sincerity of his apology. She acknowledged her part in their frequent arguments, realizing that both needed to improve their communication. The couple knew it was time to restructure their relationship through counseling. So much had life taught them about respect for one another, understanding, and even life in general. They knew it would be difficult and take time, but they were up for this task. Over the months, Mark and Jessica gradually improved. They learned how to express their feelings better and support each other through trying times. But their experience in shark-infested waters lingered as a continued reminder of the dangers of impulsive actions and the power of redemption. For Mark Thompson and Jessica Miller, the experience highlighted the resilience of the human spirit and its capacity for change through confronting fears. From a heated argument to a near-death experience, they emerged with a stronger, more meaningful relationship. Their story is a powerful reminder of the importance of communication, forgiveness, and personal growth. In 2011, a keen diver and underwater photographer named Sarah Parker set out to dive solo off the magnificent coast of Mozambique. Known for its staggering marine biodiversity, the waters of Mozambique radiated life that pulsed through colorful coral reefs. Sarah had organized this venture months in advance from Cape Town in South Africa, propelled by one clear and powerful vision: to capture the beauty of life underwater with her camera. The ocean had been a calling for her all her life. Growing up on the coast, she had spent much of her childhood stalking around tide pools and snorkeling in shallow water. As years passed, this passion for diving and underwater photography became a professional aspiration. With a keen eye and a deep respect for marine life, Sarah created captivating underwater photographs. That day, Sarah left very early in the morning. The sky was brilliant with no clouds, and the sea was calm, perfect for diving. She anchored over a coral reef, a very famous place called Rainbow Gardens, known for its brightly colored corals and highly biodiverse sea creatures. After carefully checking her gear, Sarah put on her wetsuit and meticulously checked her diving equipment. With her underwater camera securely strapped onto her chest, she took a deep breath and plunged into the azure waters. Down she went, with the world above slowly fading into the distance as a mesmerizing underwater landscape replaced it. The sunbeams filtered down on the water, casting surreal light upon the formations below. Her heart pounded in her chest with excitement as she swam more profoundly into the reef, her eyes scanning it for that perfect shot. The Rainbow Gardens indeed lived up to their name. The coral reef displayed all shades of color, with many differently shaped and sized corals composing a tapestry of color. Schools of fish moved in and out of the corals. Their shining scales shimmered from filtered sunlight. Sarah swam slowly, taking her time to capture every intricate detail of the reef. Each shot was art, evidence of how spectacular and fragile the underwater life was. As she continued, she suddenly saw something far off gliding gracefully across the floor. With her heart racing, she recognized the elegant figure of a manta ray. Manta rays were one of her favorite subjects to photograph. Their broad, wing-like fins and graceful undulations made it seem like they glided effortlessly through the water. She swam closer, camera at the ready, and was met by the noble creature. The manta ray was giant. It measured more than 20 feet from wingtip to wingtip. It moved with serene grace, its dark eyes observing everything that happened around it. She kept a respectful distance, knowing not to disturb the ray. She knew manta rays were usually gentle creatures, but their size and power earned respect. With each camera click, Sarah shot the manta ray as if it were in its habitat. The creature moved, flapping its wings to create gentle currents that swirled around it like it was dancing through the water. She was amazed by the beauty and elegance of this ray. Sarah felt a deep connection to the sea and its creatures, which made her belonging no other place but the underwater world was able to offer. The closer Sarah swam to the manta ray to get a perfect shot, the more things changed. It started moving erratically, beating its wings fast and causing solid currents. She could tell that the creature had become quite agitated. She quickly realized that her presence threatened the manta ray as she had tried to make it discreet. For Sarah, things suddenly went from bad to worse as the massive creature's movements became highly unpredictable. The smooth grace of its wing beats turned into powerful sweeps, fanning out water currents in every direction. Sarah's ability to hold position was strained as she swam. Her heart hammered in her chest, knowing any wrong move would end in a dangerous encounter. Gathering her diving skills, she tried swimming away from the agitated ray. The manta flapped its wings in rhythmic solid beats, and the currents affected her smooth swimming. She felt the force of the water pushes her hard, threatening to throw her off guard. Sarah's training kicked in as she focused on keeping calm and finding a way to safety. The current surged, becoming more robust and forceful, while Sarah's movements became more deliberate. She kicked back with her fins, trying to distance herself from the manta ray. Her eyes focused on a nearby coral formation that might offer shelter. The coral provided her with temporary sanctuary from the powerful currents, allowing Sarah to catch her breath and regain her bearings. From a distance, she saw how the manta ray was behaving. This creature did not intend to attack her but only wanted to protect itself from danger. Sarah felt sorry for putting the ray under stress. She knew her presence had affected the ray's otherwise serene environment, and wanted things back in order. Knowing this, she waited, hoping the manta ray would return to its usual calmness and grace. It felt like hours as she observed the creature's erratic behavior. Gradually, the ray movements began to slow along with the currents. Sarah started to move in, sensing this was a sign that the creature felt less threatened. Slowly, Sarah began swimming away from the coral structure but kept her distance from the manta ray. She paddled as little as possible to create less turbulence, and her heart was still racing from the adrenaline of the encounter. In light of this, her goal was achieved, to get safely back to her boat without provoking the ray any further. She swam, but her eyes never left the manta ray. It seemed to return to its grace and floated effortlessly through the water, its wings outstretched. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief but still stayed wary. Any sudden movement might provoke yet another unpredictable response. The swim back to the boat seemed to take forever. Sarah's mind was racing with what could have been if that manta ray had hit her. She was so grateful for all her training and experience, which had helped her deal with the situation calmly. It had taken this peaceful dive and turned it into a great escape, an exciting reminder of the unpredictable nature of the ocean. Finally, Sarah broke the surface and saw her boat not too far away. With aching muscles, she swam to the ship. Climbing aboard, she removed her gear off her back and took a moment to breathe. The weight of the encounter settled onto her shoulders like a mix of relief and awe. As she sat on the deck in reflection, Sarah knew that the sea had always been inspirational and unique for her, but one demanding much respect and caution. The manta ray incident just reinforced the importance of marine conservation ecosystems, and the respect all creatures living in them had to be given. Sarah's shots during that dive were nothing like she had ever taken. They did show the beauty of coral and the manta ray in its full power and elegance. Each image had a story about the delicate balance between human and natural forces. Ultimately, she managed to take the pictures and felt a deeper connection to the ocean and its inhabitants. Her encounter with the manta ray marked a turning point in her life, highlighting the sea's beauty and unpredictability. She continued diving and photographing, driven by a desire to share the underwater world's beauty with others and help protect it. For Sarah, the waters off the coast of Mozambique continued offering her inspiration, where she got lost in the beauty of coral reefs and the glory of creatures like manta rays. She did not feel that her journey as a diver and photographer was anywhere near its end. Instead, she greeted each new adventure with wide eyes and a reverent heart for the mysteries of the ocean. In the summer of 2002, an adventurer named Tom Lawson set out for the beautiful coast of Florida. near the quiet town of Cedar Key, for some recreational kayaking. Once a busy port back in the 19th century, Cedar Key was known for its rich history and tranquil waters. The Gulf was calm and clear, so the tranquility was perfect for kayaking. While paddling, you could glimpse the diversity of marine life underneath the water. Tom has been an outdoors person and hailed kayaking as one of his best sports activities. With his bright yellow kayak and high excitement, he rowed out from the shoreline early in the morning. The sun was climbing up high, throwing a golden shade on the water. The soft lapping of the waves against his kayak filled him with relief. Tom reveled in the serenity for a couple of hours as he paddled through the mangroves, observing the lively bird life and the occasional fish darting by. The air was warm and salty, and the horizon stretched endlessly. It was a perfect day. Sometime after mid-morning, Tom paddled away from the shore when he saw something entirely out of place. A shadow moving under the water, way too big for a fish. His heart quailed upon seeing a very characteristic fin slice the surface. Of course, there could be no doubt. It was a hammerhead shark. But Tom had read about hammerheads. He knew they were curious and somewhat territorial, and would come to investigate anything that entered their domain. He tried to remain calm, reminding himself that shark attacks were rare. But as the shark began to circle his kayak, he felt the first surge of fear. This hammerhead came right back in a methodic circle of Tom's kayak. It had that broad, flat head and those mismatched, rather menacing eyes on either side. Every time the shadow drew by, it appeared to be coming nearer, more inquisitive. Tom could see the body of the muscled shark surfing the sea with ease, the tail swishing from side to side. Although he was frightened, Tom knew he had to keep very cool and think very clearly. He grasped his paddle close and was ready to use it if necessary. The shark's behavior was unpredictable, and Tom needed to know how long the standoff would be and how aggressive the shark might become. The first nudge came quite unexpectedly. It came directly from underneath and lifted the kayak almost clear out of the water, close to capsizing. Tom's heart raced in his chest, trying to keep balance. He knew the shark was testing him. It was a checkup from the sneak-up. With strength, Tom held his paddle firm, knowing that a single slip could get him into the water. With each circuit, the hammerhead became increasingly aggressive. It bumped the kayak several more times before hitting the boat harder with each bump. Tom's mind consumed him with thoughts of ways to get away. He had to get to the shore, but the shark blocked his way. Tom went down on the water and made some splashes with his paddle. Groovy, he groaned within himself, attempting to scare off the shark. The big fish ducked away and as soon returned, went round him. Tom's arms were aching from the jerking, but he dared not stop. He recalled a sentence from a story. Sharks usually lose interest if they view their target as capable of posing a threat. Tom attempted to inflate his appearance to appear more significant and menacing. He sat upright in the kayak with his paddle held high. The shark looked uncertain. Its motion changed to slow down. Thinking of an opportunity in the situation, Tom crafted a desperate scheme: to paddle directly into the shallows with all the force he possessed when, in all probability, the shark might lose him as he passed the breaker. With a deep breath to steel his resolve, he paddled with all his might. The kayak surged forward as Tom briefly clung to his renewed hope. The hammerhead didn't give up easily. It continued in pursuit, its body fluidly gliding through the water. Tom's muscles burned as he paddled wildly, sweat dripping off his face. Tom saw the shore, almost within reach but still out of grasp. His arms felt like lead, yet he paddled on, driven by raw will and survival instinct. The hammerhead continued its relentless chase, occasionally nudging the kayak as a reminder of its presence. Desperately, Tom splashed his paddle toward the shark, sending water into its face. The motion confused the hammerhead, for it broke course long enough for Tom to seize the opportunity. Paddling his heart out, he began closing the gap between him and the shore. As the water grew shallower, the hammerhead finally broke off its pursuit. Only yards of the last bit to the beach were left for Tom, whose gaze brought the sandy bottom into focus. As he understood that he was nearly safe, he paddled the last few yards to the shore, and his kayak scraped against the sand while he pulled himself out on solid ground. Tom fell breathless to the sand, his convulsing body a wreck of adrenaline. In the distance, he saw the hammerhead circle a few more times before vanishing below the surface. It was over. Tom lay in the sand for a very long time, reflecting on his near-death experience. As scary as the encounter was, the moment reminded him of nature's raw beauty and unpredictability. He knew he had been lucky to get out with his life and felt a deep sense of gratitude. In the following days, Tom realized he needed to be even more cautious with the sea and its creatures. He nearly missed this vital reminder of the fine line between peace and danger in the aquatic world. One sunny summer morning in 2009, two professional fishermen named Jack Thornton and Leo Martinez decided to spend the day spearfishing offshore of beautiful Hawaii. The waters in Oahu, especially near undersea caves, were known to accommodate various marine life. Both individuals were experienced fishermen who had fished in these waters for years, mastering the skill of spearfishing and learning the intricacies of invisible perils lurking beneath the ocean surface. That day, they explored an underwater cave known locally as Puhi's Lair, with puhi being the Hawaiian word for eel. Legends among the fishermen spoke of enormous moray eels guarding the cave, but Jack and Leo, with their years of experience, had always considered these tales exaggerated. The sun was high, casting sparkling reflections on the waves as they set anchor some distance from the cave entrance. Jack and Leo are suited up in their diving gear, and their actions are automatic from years of partnership. Their plan was straightforward. Jack would dive first, equipped with his spear, while Leo followed closely to provide backup. As Jack plunged into the crystal-clear water, vibrant hues of coral and many different fish formed a kaleidoscopic underwater scape. He swam purposefully, scanning the floor below for likely targets. A few meters behind, Leo kept guard. As he approached the cave's entrance, Jack saw a big parrotfish and aimed. The spear flashed accurately into the water, hitting what he was aiming for. The fish struggled for a short time and then stopped fighting. Jack finned forward to collect his prey, reaching into the gloom at the cave's entrance. Without warning, a black shape slid from the darkness. Jack's arm was seized with sudden intense pain as a giant moray eel clamped onto his arm. Its vast and influential body twisted around his limb, and its pointed teeth dug into his flesh. His eyes widened with surprise and pain as Jack's breath rushed out of his body in a bubbling rush. Seeing the commotion, Leo swam out at once to Jack's side. The image of this moray eel, its sinuous body wrapped around Jack's arm, was frightening yet awesome. Leo knew they had to think fast. Leo approached cautiously with his knife, trying to avoid the eel's thrashing and Jack's increasingly desperate struggle. Leo began cutting at the eel's body with a precision born of necessity, accurately targeting the softer areas. Feeling threatened, the eel tightened its grip on Jack, causing him to wince in agony. Blood clouded the water, intensifying the urgency of their situation. Leo's knife bit deep into the eel's flesh. The creature loosed its hold on him, curling with a parting, menacing flick of its tail deep into the cave. Jack was freed, but in pain, clutching at his bleeding arm, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Leo grabbed him, and together they kicked toward the surface. They both broke through the water's surface, gasping for air as their adrenaline remained. Leo helped Jack onto the boat, where the wound on his arm was already swelling and bleeding profusely. He then attended to Jack's wound, applying pressure after disinfecting it as best he could with their first aid kit before wrapping it tightly to stem the bleeding. The return journey was fraught with tension. Jack was pale and in pain, while Leo concentrated on keeping him awake and alert. As they reached the dock, other fishermen rushed to help and quickly transported Jack to the nearest medical facility. Doctors closed Jack's deep gashes and gave him antibiotics to avoid infection. The incident left Jack with some scars, both physical and mental, and respect for the legends of Puhi's Lair. Shaken, Leo was lauded for his presence of mind and bravery. Over the following weeks, the experience marked the two men. They would remember that fateful day years later as they sat on the dock, recalling their adventures. It acted as a reminder that no matter the experience or how well skilled one may be in the ocean, it always had the upper hand with its vast secrets and its creatures formidable. There was the story of Jack Thornton and Leo Martinez, two fishermen who wrestled with a giant moray eel and lived to tell it. These are stories that join the rich tapestry defining the fishing community of Oahu. As summer broke out in 2012, The sun rose over the pristine coastline of Byron Bay, Australia. This beautiful coastal town, known for its picturesque beaches and dynamic sea life, was a haven for surfers and swimmers, but a paradise for visitors everywhere. The crystal-clear waters of the South Pacific, so inviting, held their share of mysteries and dangers. Byron Bay has a long history of marine encounters. The indigenous Bundjalung people revered the ocean for its power and creatures. The Cape Byron Marine Park protects rich biodiversity, seeking a balance between humans and nature. Megan O'Connell was a triathlete who dedicated months to preparing for an upcoming Ironman race. Her vigorous training put her at the top of her game in swimming, cycling, and running. Her pulled-back brown hair complemented her lean, muscular build, showcasing her dynamic determination and discipline. This was one of those unusually calm mornings, so Megan thought she would test her swimming endurance. She slipped on her wetsuit and waded into the cool, inviting water. Her rhythmic and powerful strokes sliced through the gentle waves as she found her pace. The horizon unfurled before her like a line where the sky kissed the sea. A sudden, mighty bump rammed Megan in the side about a mile from shore. At first, she had been thinking of driftwood, but when she turned, her blood ran cold. Circling her was a giant tiger shark, the characteristic stripes faintly visible against its gray skin. The shark, some 10 feet long, was curious and perhaps dangerous. Megan's heart raced, but her training kept her calm. Panicking would only make things worse. She knew that any sudden movement could provoke the shark. She swam with steady, long strokes, keeping her eyes on the predator. The shark made closer passes, its movement slow and calculated, as if assessing this stranger in its territory. Megan's immediate goal was to get to shore without antagonizing the shark. Every stroke presented a challenge to her nerves and strength. It seemed impossible to get back, with minutes feeling like eternities. She remembered what her coach had told her, to remain calm under pressure and draw on every last ounce of training. The shark would sometimes become unpredictable, swimming away and reappearing a few minutes later, much closer. Megan swam, using her peripheral vision to monitor the shark while trying to maintain concentration on breathing and stroke efficiency. She could see the coastline, but knew it still felt agonizingly far. As Megan swam, a nearby lifeguard called Peter Hughes became aware of the unusual commotion. From his vantage point on the beach, he saw the telltale fins slicing through the water near a lone swimmer. Peter quickly grabbed a rescue board and paddled out, surging with adrenaline. Her heart leaped with a surge of fresh hope as she saw Peter. The shark appeared to be distracted by the arrival. Peter got to Megan and maneuvered the board between her and the shark. He gestured for her to get on the board, and they started cautiously retreating into the shore. The swim back was tensely uneventful, with every second a potential danger. The shark followed but seemed to lose interest. The board and the presence of 2 humans were too much for it. Finally, after what appeared to be an eternity, Megan and Peter reached the shallows. The shark veered away, deterred by the rapidly decreasing depth, and then disappeared into the blue depths. Exhausted but safe, Megan collapsed onto the sand. Shaken by the experience, she felt grateful for it. For though the encounter tested her in ways she could hardly imagine, it confirmed her faith in what calm and composed action could do in the face of danger. Within several weeks, Megan's story had inspired the triathlete community, and all those reaching out for a message of mental strength. Her confrontation with the tiger shark was awful, but added another facet to her training and preparation. Megan continued training, sharpening now her eyes to the unseen perils in open waters. In the event, lifeguard Peter Hughes was commended for his presence of mind and bravery. His actions that day saved Megan, but equally underlined vigilance and preparedness as critical elements in safeguarding swimmers. Byron Bay has been a favorite haunt for athletes and visitors alike. Every visit reminds one that it is a delicate dance between humans and the wild. Megan's story is indelibly etched into the town's lore as a testament to human endurance, courage, and the capricious beauty of nature. The summer of 2010 was scorching, with the brilliant sun reflecting off the crystal waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Port Aransas, a small coastal town in Texas, had long been a haven for sea lovers and adventure seekers. Its rich history as a fishing village has transformed into a tourist destination, making it the perfect backdrop for relaxation and excitement. Jake Thornberry was a 32-year-old software engineer in Austin who had decided he needed a serious break from the computer screens and lines of code. He told his close friends of many years, Olivia Sanchez and Marcus Dupree, to spend a weekend with him boating and snorkeling off the coast of Port Aransas. The trio, renting a modest 24-foot center console boat from the joint, often mused over coffee at one of the many shops lining the boardwalk. They joked about Captain Bob's nautical adventures' questionable safety standards and hygiene practices. Barely at sea as they pushed off from the dock, Jake noticed a smell on the boat's cushions that resembled fish, or perhaps cheese. Their destination was a remote coral reef 5 miles offshore, teeming with vibrant marine life. The friends had spent the morning cruising along the coastline, watching dolphins play in their wake and unsuccessfully applying sunscreen, without getting covered in sand. Approaching the reef, Jake cut the outboard motor and the boat gently bobbed in the smooth water. The friends donned their snorkel gear, hoping their equipment wouldn't fail them, as they entered the water with a series of ungraceful splashes. Feeling a bit adventurous in the water compared to the others, Jake let his hand lines drift further from the stern of the panga. Something big and dark caught his attention as he skimmed along, marveling at the rainbow of colors filtering through the water. At first, he thought it might be a particularly ambitious grouper or a whale that had taken a wrong turn. As he got closer, the shape slowly began to take form. It was a giant sea turtle about the size of a compact car, with a half-inch of algae feebly swishing back and forth with the tide. Jake was pleased to witness such a magnificent creature, but that pleasure soon turned to alarm as he realized the turtle was tangled in a web of fishing nets and lines. Jake didn't hesitate. He dove down with all his strength, determined to free the terrified turtle. As he got closer, the agony in the turtle's eyes became increasingly apparent, reflecting fear and a deep sense of weariness. He stretched out his hand and his fingers quickly untangled one of the long loops ensnaring the helpless giant. Suddenly, the turtle's survival mechanism was triggered. Panicked by Jake's body's closeness, it thrashed about violently, sending bubbles and currents of agitation through the turbulent water, with Jake tumbling end over end for all he was worth. The next moment, when he finally managed to get his bearings right, Jake realized with a jolt of fear that he was offshore and pushed even deeper into the water, away from the boat's safety. Still entangled, the turtle sat between him and his only means of return. Above the water, Olivia and Marcus began worrying about how much time Jake had spent under it. Together, they searched the water nervously, peering sharply toward the sun and calling his name. Then they noticed bubbles and splashing in the water. They had to know what would follow. Marcus, the strongest of the two swimmers, swam to Jake immediately, while Olivia stayed on the boat, ready to move it closer. Swimming, Marcus cursed under his breath the second slice of key lime pie he had wolfed down the previous night, which now lay ponderously in his stomach. Jake felt he needed to return to the boat. Every fiber of his being stood stiff at the thought of leaving the turtle in such distress. In what he would later recount as an act of determination coupled with a touch of temporary insanity, Jake decided to free the turtle while trying to guide it to shallower waters. A series of events then ensued, which might have been amusing if they weren't so dangerous. The netting forced Jake into contortions until his fingers were wrinkled and chilled like raisins from the prolonged immersion. Perhaps sensing that Jake was some elongated remora, the turtle applied its commensal attentiveness to the situation. Sometimes it wriggled, and at other times it contented itself with using Jake as a scratcher. In the nick of time, Marcus saw Jake doing some interpretation dance with what looked like an unwilling reptilian partner. Marcus got in on the rescue by suppressing a laugh that would have caused his snorkel to fill with water. The two friends struggled with the turtle, trying to set it free. Their only communication was an elaborate series of hand gestures that would baffle even the most experienced scuba instructor. Olivia had managed to bring the boat closer to them, and its presence was like a beaming ray of hope to the exhausted swimmers. They found themselves caught in an embrace with the turtle as they struggled against the last of the netting. The creature saw this as the perfect moment to express gratitude by trying to concuss them with the flippers. With a final desperate try, they freed the turtle. The turtle knew it was free again at last, and it whipped off like a torpedo past Jake and Marcus, who spun in its wake. They beheld the mighty form, diving onwards into the dark, indomitable testament to nature's survival. Exhausted but triumphant, Jake and Marcus swam back to Olivia's boat, where she helped them aboard. Collapsing on the deck, gasping for breath and spitting out salt water, all they could do was burst into fits of laughter at the sheer nonsense of their adventure. Conversations flew excitedly back and forth throughout the ride back to Port Aronsaw. With each retelling, the story became more embellished. By the time they reached the shore, the turtle had grown to the size of a small island, and Jake had single-handedly wrestled it into submission while simultaneously discovering the cure for seasickness. This adventure stayed with Jake, Olivia, and Marcus for years. It had fun and profoundly impacted them, inspiring a newfound respect for marine life and the need for ocean conservation. Jake was so taken by the whole thing that he spent those vacations volunteering with local sea turtle protection programs. Their experience forged a deeper bond and ignited a passion for marine conservation that would influence their lives for years. And so the tale of Jake Thornberry's impromptu dance with a reluctant reptilian partner lived on, a testament to the unexpected adventures that await those who dare to dive into the unknown.